Welcome, friends, to the Someone Gets Me podcast. I am your host, Dianne A, and I am so delighted that you're here. This podcast was created because I believe there is a visionary leader inside each one of us who is waiting to be seen. In each episode of Someone Gets Me, you will hear useful tips from successful visionaries who will share their stories about how being seen has allowed them to take their vision out into the world with action. Common ADHD communication styles and strategies. This is Dianne at Someone Gets Me, and I'm here today to talk about some common ADHD ways of communicating. This isn't meant to be all of it, and it's not meant to be theory. It's meant to be practical kind of experience in the world. And what I notice is that people who are neurodivergent tend to communicate a bit differently than people who are neurotypical, which is expected, right? So one of the things I want to talk about today is how it all works, a little bit about some of the common overarching themes, and then also what to do. So if you're the neurodivergent person listening to me with ADHD, you're probably going to relate to all of these. And hopefully you'll use the skills at the end of the episode to help you manage through and be able to have more effective, more meaningful communication with your loved ones, your coworkers, and with yourself. Now, I know that there's so much more happening and more things to think about. This is not meant to be comprehensive because I don't think it can be, because neurodivergence is such a wide thing and all of us are built differently. So whether you have ADHD officially diagnosed or whether you feel like you have the flavor of it or you love somebody that has a different way of processing, realize it's not a deficit. Somebody that has ADHD or a neurodivergence, it's not because there's something wrong. The place where there's something wrong is in trying to manage in a system not built for us. So the system wasn't built for ADHD, but that doesn't make the ADHD wrong. The system was not built for all neurodivergence, but that doesn't make the neurodivergence wrong. It doesn't make the system right, and it also doesn't make the system wrong. So I want to encourage you to come out of the good, bad, right, wrong, black, white theory here and realize that all of our life is on a huge continuum. And because it's on a continuum, then we experience life in this continuum. And so these communication issues and problems that I see in myself and my clients are just a reminder for those of you who know them and maybe new things for those who don't know it yet. And sometimes you're experiencing them and don't even realize that it's neurodivergent related. So the first thing I want to talk about is not talking. That's right, not saying anything, unless maybe you're called on or invited into the conversation, or having difficulty expressing what you're thinking or feeling or meaning. And so therefore just say nothing. That's a real common thing with people with ADHD. In fact, sometimes with some of the people I work with, I kind of have to pull it out of them. I notice sometimes for me, if I end up in a situation where I'm not really sure what to do, or I'm not sure what the motives of the other people are, or things feel a little tricky, I won't say anything. Not until I have a little bit more assurance, right? And so there's nothing wrong. It's be aware that when an ADHD person's not talking, that does not mean nothing's going on. Typically, when somebody's not talking, there is rich, deep internal dialogue. In fact, I have found myself, and I have a client that does this all the time, that he thinks so much and he runs a dialogue and he forgets it's not coming out his mouth. So in his mind, his experience, he is saying it out loud and he is communicating with his partner, and it doesn't work quite that way because it's not really coming out. And so that not talking is not because there's nothing going on. It's because it's very deep and rich in his inner processing world. And he's not paying attention to the fact that it's not coming out of his mouth. That's one thing. The next thing that I see a lot, I see this a lot, is impulsivity, is being impulsive, jumping in, finishing people's sentences, gotta talk, that reminds me of the next thing, right? That always happens. Right, especially when you're in a conversation that's exciting and thrilling and has mutual understanding. I have one of my really good friends for decades and decades. We can go from subject to subject to subject to subject because of the impulsivity. And fortunately, because of our giftedness, we can follow, right? And we know what we're talking about. But being impulsive sometimes and maybe inadvertently interrupting somebody can be looked upon from a neurotypical standpoint as being rude or not okay, or, why are you doing that? Well, it's because with an ADHD brain, if the person doesn't get the need met and say the thing, whatever it is, too much time goes by, they might forget. And so there is that whole exchange interaction. It's a different way of communicating. It's not all wrong. Sometimes it's looked at as being rude or interrupting. And so there's a way to navigate that impulsive energy in an ADHD person when they're dealing with other neurotypical people. But understand that that impulsive communication can sometimes get in the way. It's not necessarily wrong, but it is necessarily an obstacle at times. The next thing I see in my ADHD people is subject changing. I have one person who will start on one train of thought and just go down this rabbit hole and then go over here and change the subject over here and come back over here. And then after about 4 or 5 subject changes, he'll say, I've been changing the subject a lot. Let me get back to where I started. And then we'll go over all the topics a little bit slower because it's difficult to mentor somebody when they're changing subjects so much. Good news is I have ADHD myself, so I can follow. And subject changing frequently sometimes can get in the way of communication because nothing ever really gets finished or followed through on. Or maybe there's more in that particular topic or that idea that doesn't happen because we're over here on the next thing. And so changing subjects abruptly without kind of segueing or being part of the conversation can get in the way of communication, especially with family, especially with people that you love and care about, and you want to have authentic communication with them. And then that ADHD pull to change a subject when something comes up can really get in the way. Now, sometimes it's because a person's already thinking 3 or 4 sentences ahead, or they think they're ahead of the other person. And sometimes it's because we have 3 or 4 trains of thoughts going on at the same time. And which one am I talking about, right? So it matters that we pay attention to being respectful when it comes to changing the subject or working with the subject in a conversation. And kind of what goes with this, the next one is all about being obsessive. Oh my gosh, obsessive thinking. It is something else. We can go and go and go and go, loop and loop and loop. And we can ruminate on any topic until it's just ridiculous, right? And a lot of people that are gifted and neurodivergent tend to have obsessive thinking. They want to really understand or go over and over and over. And sometimes it's not because they're trying to obsess. Sometimes it's a learned pattern. Sometimes it's a way of trying to moderate the conversation or emotion. There's lots of reasons for it. But the point is, when you find yourself obsessing, that is going over and over, ruminating, going over and over in something like in a circle. That creates an issue because a lot of people that you might be communicating with won't know what to do with that. Or somebody might bring up another subject and you go right back to where you were and obsess on these things. Do they like me? Do they don't like me? Did I do the right thing? Did I say the right thing? All of these things that go round and round can create a void within and some disconnection from people that we say we care about. So I think it's really important that we realize that when our brains are going in circles, that we have the power with that awareness to slow it down or stop it or change it. See, we're not victims of any of these things. These are traits and these are things that we tend to do, but learning how to discipline ourselves, learning how to have proper nutrition, learning how to take care of our nervous system, our ADHD works in our favor much more than somebody who's using it as an excuse to do things that aren't so hot, or using it as an excuse to not do what they need to do. And I'm a big one on taking what it is that's going on with us, and instead of pathologizing it, saying, how can I use it in my favor? How can I use my ADHD in my favor? How can I use how I'm neurodivergent in my favor? I'm all about action and solution, because what I believe firmly is that people who have these neurodiverse ways of operating, it's not an accident. We are all different by design. It's on purpose. So what if we explored what that purpose might be and how we might use it, even though the world wasn't built for us? We know this. We've known this our whole lives. The world isn't built for us. I'm only 4'11". Most of the physical world isn't built for me. I'm sitting in my really comfortable chair that actually is made for people with ADHD. My feet aren't hitting the ground because they don't reach. Right. I know. So the world's not built for us. It's not built for us mentally, because we think and process at a completely different rate than what's being reinforced. So when you think you're different, or you think the world's not meant for you, it is not made for you, but it's meant for you to be here, to bring your beauty, your gift, your light to the world. And so this brings me to the fifth thing I want to talk about, and that is self-esteem. So many people that I begin to work with, that seek me out to work with me, their self-esteem is suffering. Now, some people would tell me they don't have any self-esteem. And some people say that they have a lot of self-doubt or imposter syndrome. And low self-esteem comes because we're trying to fit into a world that isn't made for us. So when we stop trying to fit in to a system that isn't made for us, and instead we create a system that works for us. So instead of going in a loop, we live in a spiral, so that we're always elevating. We're always elevating instead of always going in circles. And so when we have low self-esteem, or we don't have enough confidence, we tend to get defensive. We tend to blame other people. We tend to have walls up, because there's a part of us that doesn't believe we're good enough or we can measure up. Even if mentally we might say, oh, I know I'm smart. I know I measure up. I know I'm good enough. But do you feel it? Do you feel that? Do you feel confident and competent? Do you know that you're the best idea? Do you know that? Do you know that your unique being is here with this mighty purpose, even if you don't know what it is yet? Do you know that? Do you know that your unique way of processing the world is a leg up? It's not a setback. See, the world has taught us wrong. There's a trance that we want to break out of, so that we can realize our real authenticity and who we really are. Because what you are is perfect, whole, and complete. And what you are is fully equipped. There's no mistake. Sometimes we feel like a mistake. Sometimes we know we don't fit in and it feels kind of yucky. Sometimes we wish somebody loved us in a way that we want to be loved, not the way they want to give it. Sometimes we want to feel heard and we want to feel understood, and that's kind of hard sometimes. Those things are real situations. And it's not for us to internalize that there's something wrong with us, because another person is not able to hear us or meet us in a place where we can feel connected is not our fault. It's not. So it takes diligence and attention and care. Most of the people that I work with, actually, I'm probably one of the few people that just totally get them, because I know how to listen. I know how to listen to what you're saying and to what you're not saying. And I know how to hear you with my heart and my ears and my mind, my soul. It's not just a bunch of prefrontal cortex words. So now let's talk a little bit about how we can manage this. How do we manage when we have so much going on the inside that it's hard to talk, or that we're overly impulsive? Or what do we do when we're just always changing subjects, or maybe obsessing more than we should? And what do we do when we kind of have a crack in our self-esteem because we just don't feel like we are everything we're supposed to be, or that we're good enough somehow, right? What do? Well, here's the first thing. We got a few steps. The first one is to listen. Listen to your heart. Listen to what other people are saying, and most importantly, to what they're not saying. Listen to what's coming out of your own mouth, and does it line up, or is there something in there that you should be saying that you're not saying? Does everything match? Pay attention. Listening with our ears is one thing. Listening with our eyes and our soul and our heart, that's the other part. Does the feeling you get from the conversation or the person line up with the words? That's a big one, right? I have people say things to me a lot, but their behavior doesn't line up with their words. Or I have people that say one thing and the words coming out of their mouth and the feeling coming off of them are two different things. So that level of discernment pays off. And you, with ADHD, neurodivergent people, we can feel and sense that much more acutely than others. I think that's why it's a big gift we have, and it's not a deficit. The next thing that really matters is breathing. As I always say, air is our friend. If all of us took an inhale at the very same time, there's still plenty of air to go around. We're never going to run out. There's plenty, but yet people hold their breath. There have been times where I've been teaching groups and classes and everybody's holding their breath so much. In the middle of it, I'll go, breathe. Everybody just breathe, because they're just holding their breath. Now, we learn how to hold our breath because of moderating pain when we're children. And so holding our breath is a way to mitigate emotional and physical pain. So it's a natural human response when there's pain happening, like when you're a little kid and you're getting your vaccinations or your shot, and they go, hold your breath, right? It helps us mitigate pain. It also helps when somebody has emotional pain, they hold their breath. You can look around, look at yourself right now. Well, you're probably breathing more now because I'm talking about it, but a lot of people breathe out of the top of their chest. That's not where your lungs are. Your lungs are deeper. They're in your belly. And if your belly's not going in and out when you breathe, out when you're inhaling and in when you're exhaling, then you're not breathing fully. So sometimes just taking a break several times a day and consciously breathing, closing your eyes and breathing, like, and doing that 3 or 4 times allows us to see things more clearly, allows us to be less impulsive, allows us to stay on topic and share what's going on. And it also reminds us that we're breathing, and so therefore quite valuable. The next step is to consciously slow down. Now, this is a fun one for me sometimes, because when I get going, I get going. And so to consciously slow down. So one of the things I do is I take my hands and I place them on the top of my legs, on my thighs, right by my knees, right? Just barely above my knees. And I just kind of rub them a little bit. And keeping my hands on my knees is something I've trained myself to do in order to slow down, in order to function and focus and be able to use all parts of me for whatever the good thing is that's going on, whether it's a conversation or I'm speaking to somebody or I'm working with somebody, or sometimes it's just trying to get things done around the house and I'm just ramped up and moving fast. Then I just stop for a minute and I rub my knees a little and remind myself it's okay, breathe, slow down and listen. Just breathe and slow down and listen. Unless there's a fire, in which case you should be calling 911, it is okay to slow down and breathe and listen. Now, the next step is about your communication itself. And I have a rule that I try to use when I'm over speaking, if I'm trying to explain myself. So if you find yourself always explaining yourself, you're over speaking, and that is not going to help you. So the number one thing you can do is be very succinct. One of the homework assignments I give my executives all the time is deliver your message in sentences that have no more than 5 words, and then have no more than 5 sentences. So 5-word sentences, no more than 5 sentences. That's 25 words. If you cannot deliver the message in 25 words, pare it down until you can. Because it seems that so many people love to overspeak, use way too many words, go around, talk around the topic or the subject instead of talking right to it. So the more succinct we can be and the more clear we can be, the better our communication is. We're understood more, we're heard more. And then when we're listening, it's a real kind of conversation that we can listen to. So be succinct, right? If you speak all fluffy words and stuff, that's great if you're writing a novel. But sometimes if you're talking to somebody with ADHD or you have it, the more clear and succinct you can be, the less it triggers the brain to go into obsession mode. And the last thing that I think is really very important is to honor your own need to be heard. You know, I say a lot to people that one of my biggest triggers is not being heard and or being misunderstood. I've had lots of trouble in my life with people actually hearing me. They hear what they think I'm saying, or they hear what they imagine they want me to say, but they don't necessarily listen. And so it's all about feeling heard. So if you're in a conversation with somebody, in a relationship with somebody, and you're listening, how can you communicate that you actually hear them, like you get it? How can you communicate that in a meaningful way that that other person feels heard, right? So you need to be heard. The two basic human needs to be loved and heard. So it's required that in your world you feel heard. How do you know when you're heard? How do you know when somebody really gets you? How do you know when your feelings and your experience and your understanding and your knowledge is really valued? And that's what you pay attention to, right? That's what you pay attention. That's what I pay attention to. I have people who listen, and they're great listeners. And I have people who don't listen very well in my world. And then I also have people who know how to hear me, who get it. And there's all different variances. And again, it's not right or wrong. It's be aware. Do you have the need to be heard? Do you get frustrated when somebody doesn't understand you or doesn't hear you, right? These are important things to pay attention to in our communication. Only around 20 to 25% of our communication are the words. All the rest of it is eye contact, body language, intonation, breathing, energy, presence, all of it. It's like, I have a dog. My dog communicates all kinds of things to me. Doesn't use any words. You probably have pets or other animals in the world. You can watch them communicate without any English words, without any words. So we can be heard without a word being spoken. And I have friends of mine that can communicate to me that they hear me without a word being spoken. I know how to communicate to somebody that I hear them and I don't have to say a word. I can, I don't have to. So honor your own need to be heard. And if people in your world that you love and care about have a hard time hearing you, it might be time to have somebody help teach them and you how to do that communication. I do it a lot with different couples that I work with, and I work with one person and then they're having difficulty with just hearing each other or understanding. And so we'll have a meeting of everybody. I've done it with corporate boardrooms and things like that, because some people on the board didn't understand. They couldn't hear the creative vision of the visionaries that were responsible. And so the business mind and the creative visionary mind were having a hard time hearing each other. So they were both getting frustrated because nobody was honoring the fact that they need to be heard. The moment I got people to start working with that idea, then all the meetings went more smoothly, all the projects went more smoothly, and everybody communicates a lot more clear because they're succinct and they understand what it means to be heard and the value of that basic human need. So all of our communication, verbal and nonverbal, is predicated on the fact that we as humans want to communicate and be in connection and in a relationship with others of the same species and other sentient beings. So pay attention to how you're listening, how you're breathing. Pay attention to the different communication things and remind yourself that there's always improvement, there's always growth, and there's always transformation. Because after all, the world is expanding and growing. So we want to be expanding and growing with it. So when I hear people say, well, I've learned that already, I've crossed the finish line, so to speak, that doesn't work. It's like running up and down escalator. Pretty soon, the whole world will have moved, will have grown and evolved beyond that finish line that that person created for themselves. So friends, I hope that this episode of communication has served you and you are reminded or maybe heard some things you haven't heard. My new book, Care for the Neurodivergent Soul, is out. It's available at every bookstore and also on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And I invite you to get it because it has lots of wisdom in it, lots of questions to ponder. So lots of stories of different compilations of people that I know and have worked with. And soon to come will be the workbook that goes with it, that will be a guide and a workbook with more things and more content and more resources. It's right on the heels. I'm almost done with it. So I invite you to schedule a get to know you call. If there's anything you want to talk about, please let me know in the comments if there's anything I can do to support you. Because after all, that's why Someone Gets Me podcast is here. That's why I am here. And that's why Visions Applied as a company is here, is to inspire and serve you. So know that I believe you're beautiful and lovable and capable. And until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, put your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you because you're a rock star. You're here on purpose with a mighty purpose. So go out there and let your light shine. Go out there and communicate. Until the next episode, be well.
Thank you for listening. I trust you gained some valuable inspiration and information. Please join me and other visionaries in the Someone Gets Me Facebook group. Or for more information on my services and additional episodes, visit someonegetsme.com. Again, thanks for listening.